Hello, everyone. This is Jamie Flinchball, host of People Solve Problems. And here we have two guests at our show, Daniel Stewart and Peter Stewart. Welcome.
Thanks, Jamie. Pleasure to be here.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to this, Jamie.
Yeah, looking forward to have you both. I want to joke that there's no relation, but of course you are brothers. And together you lead Stewart Leadership, global leadership team and organizational consulting, training, coaching firm, specializing in developing custom and practical solutions to grow people and organizations. I've had the pleasure of working alongside you at times, working with you at times, and so gotten to know the organization over the years. So glad we get to have today's conversation. So let's just start with assessing somebody, assessing a person or a team, their skills, their capabilities. And I want to frame this, right? You have to hire individuals, you have to send them off representing your company, doing great work. So you have to assess a wide range of skills for your own employees, your own hires, but then also your own clients that you coach and engage with as well. So maybe just start as business owners, how do you assess the talent that you bring in or try to lead through Stewart Leadership?
Yeah, it's a good one. I'll just kind of dive in and start the conversation off. So as we look at bringing on consultants and coaches and business development folks to strengthen and build Stewart Leadership, I will often say I look for two things. And then we can talk through how to assess this. But these two things, they got to be dang good at what they do. It is excellence. It is high level. It is years of experience and expertise, the competence. Yes, all of these things. The other thing is they got to be a really good person. They have to be generous. They have to be kind. They have to be considerate. They have to be empathetic. Some words that sometimes are not always brought up as much, more so now, I think, but as much within a business context. And it's really saying, are you going to be critiquing and saying bad things essentially and talking smack about the client? Or are you going to meet them there and appreciate everything that they have done because they have made good choices in their mind? How do you support that? Those are the two things. So first off, in any assessment, clarifying what the heck you're even going to measure. And that's how we often distinguish. And then it's through the conversation. It's through the additional assessment. And the thing I'll emphasize, and then I want to hear Peter's thoughts too, is making sure it's not just one person's perspective through which we're assessing the people. Mm-hmm. That is where we get into trouble. One perspective ain't enough. So anyway, Peter, jump on in.
Yeah, I think you laid it out really well. And I think fundamentally it's being really picky. And it's being okay with being picky. It's having that mindset of abundance versus scarcity. We know there are going to be really good professionals out there, and we just want to find them, and we want to connect with them. And so if people don't fit that, it's okay. We're not desperate for people. And I think that's a position where you know what you want, and there are the standards that you've established. There's a brand reputation you want to maintain. There's a service quality you want to enhance and be sure you can deliver. So you can be picky with that. And then to add on the two that Daniel mentioned, the third is there has to be this willingness to be agile and flexible. The individuals who really only work in one framework or they do one thing, kind of that one trick pony philosophy, that really doesn't fly for the work we're trying to do because of the diverse needs of our clients. So there needs to be that willingness to listen, to shift, to pivot, to really deliver what they need as opposed to what's comfortable for you to deliver.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Certainly sort of fit for use, product market fit almost in that regard. And, as business owners, you get to make those decisions. You get to decide what's good for you, right? So you get to put that judgment on it. I know back when I used to run a a larger firm. I just didn't want to spend a lot of time managing people. So one of my criteria was I wanted somebody self-starting, not needing a lot of management. That was just because I didn't want to do it, spend my time. But I like those criteria. Now, in those cases, you get to be judge, right? Because you're making a decision about in or out. When you're working with clients, sort of the goal isn't to judge, but it is to evaluate, because you're trying to help that person fit their needs, their best success. So how does that change? How do you assess people and their capabilities when it's on the client side?
Yeah, I'll jump in for a moment there. So a couple of things ring true. One is making sure you get multiple perspectives. As I mentioned, it's just often disastrous when one person feels that that's their view and they are not open to somebody else. And so getting multiple perspectives for sure. The second thing I'll emphasize is paying attention to the very small behaviors outside of the formal conversations. Everything is part of the recruiting process. The email follow-ups, the typos, the pleasantness, oh, I need to reschedule, or how can I adapt and adjust? Oh, let me reach out to this person. Let me offer a thought here. How generous are you will often showcase not only your own values, but how you would behave in a real circumstance under a stressful, high pressure situation. The whole thing is part of it. And then I'll also mention we will often advocate some sort of psychometric, some sort of work styles. We will use the Hogan assessment a lot of times with clients, especially with more senior level executives in particular, and then debrief them to be able to help inform them, to be them being the hiring manager folks, to be able to be more informed as to what kind of decision they want to make related to this person. So several data points along the way.
Yeah, and then you're looking at the data points and recognizing the data points may come from a variety of sources. It may be other people you interview and talk with. It may be formal assessments. It can be through observations. All those are data points that you can gather as we are interacting with others. And this is, I think, both on the client level as well as kind of the hiring level, kind of recruitment side. It's really trying to assess the level of awareness an individual has of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How willing are they to acknowledge the strengths they bring, to own the weaknesses and the true ones. It's not I have a tendency to just take on too much and try too hard. Those classics is like, come on, let's get real. Nobody's perfect at everything.
Right.
But yeah, are they willing to really dig in and dive into those to acknowledge that? Because if there's a willingness there for growth and for development and to own that, then great. We've got progress. We've got things we can work on.
And I'll just quickly add, the other key element is to make sure that as we're working with the client, everybody has a similar set of expectations around the role itself, because that's where we find often things can go really haywire and sideways quickly. And it might seem small, but 6 months later, 12 months later, 18 months later, when they're all sitting around wanting to fire the person because they don't think that he or she was delivering, what did you want them to do?
Mm-hmm.
And were you aligned around that to begin with? And so organization design and designing that job and thinking through scenarios, how would it work and why and how, another key factor.
Yeah.
And with that, it really some of the classic kind of whether it OD or change model or where you state what is present, like what is the present state, really trying to clarify that. Where do we want to go to? And what's that gap? Like how big is the delta? How much movement is required to adjust that? So digging in deep to clarify really what does this present state look like? And then who's really involved in determining what that future state needs to be?
Yep. Yeah, it's always a challenge as the future state evolves as you go through, and do you go where the new person wants to take it, or where we set out to take it in the first place. I also like, just reminds me of a particular question I heard once, but the self-aware point. I heard a interview question referenced recently, which was, what are your triggers and how do you manage them? Right? Because we all have them. And the point was, if you don't have any triggers, or you're not willing to share them, you're not self-aware. And it's not one of those questions you can flip around and go, oh, I just work too hard. That's my weakness. And sort of not a lot of easy ways through that question, right? From that standpoint. So
That's a great one. I love that.
I almost want to repeat it now, just so I remember it, because I think it's such a good question.
Yeah.
So getting into problem solving inside your organization, whether that's product development, you do what you as a company sort of take on an approach very similar to back when I ran my consulting company, which was in many ways product forward, right? Unique value proposition products. So you have product development, you of course have business development, you have servicing the clients as well. So I'm sure problems come up. I know for myself, when I first started out 25 years ago as an owner of a consulting business, it took me a long time to have a flexible role in problems. I wanted to be heavily involved, make sure we got to good outcomes of quickly and right. So how do you decide your roles in problem solving inside the business, whether it's a client relationship on the fritz or product development not going the way you want, or when do you grab the reins, when do you step back, when do you coach, when do you just watch? How do you decide your role day to day?
Yeah. Peter, yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah.
I know you're ready to say something here.
No, it's a great question. And I, I'll give the classic, it depends response, but I think it captures a lot of it. It's based on what is the trust that has been built with the individuals that are involved in this problem. Is this early on? And how closely are you getting involved? Not just from the, hey, we need to solve this problem, but I also want to learn the problem solving approach that these individuals that we're newly collaborating with are going to leverage and use. So that's where you look, and those that obviously you've worked with longer, you've created that history. There's going to be a lot more trust that's been built in how they're managing and what it is. There are certain things when it comes to, client delivery and expectations. And if there's problems and there's levels of management that are involved, higher executives and so forth. Yeah, that may be the time and the place. As an owner, we jump in because we want that white glove touch. We want to be sure their concerns are being heard. We want to help resolve those, to help work through any of those. But our goal is to try and minimize the amount of direct involvement we have to have, because that means we have really good people who have created quality relationships to work through these issues.
Yeah, I just want to pick up on something, because I think this is an undervalued point for most people, is you are evaluating their problem-solving approach, how they approach, because any one problem, right, we can end up with a good answer or a bad answer, but how are they going to solve the next problem when you're not there? That's in the approach. And so I want to ask a two-part question. First, when you say trust, I'm assuming, or I'm inferring, that you're trusting in their capability, not necessarily their intent, because you hopefully already have trust in their intent. So are you looking for trust in their problem-solving approach? And then what are you looking for in how they approach it that makes you earn or feel that trust?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's, as you're referencing the different parts of trust, and you could break in those 3 C's, trust their character. Are they doing a good job? But it's really that capability. Do they have the skills to do it? And then that commitment to follow through, that dependability. So it's really the latter two that we're looking at. And as you're talking through and helping identify, okay, what are the questions you're going to ask? How are you presenting the context and the history as they may be bringing us up to speed on the situation? What's the angle at which they're maybe positioning blame? Are they owning any part that they might have contributed to this issue? Are they putting out and suggesting these are the next steps? This is where we're planning to go. Those are all the things. Do they bring us into kind of the narrative that's going on into their mind, in their head? And are they considering factors that we would think about? And that's where we can then suggest additional areas of, hey, have you considered doing this? And that's where we dig into, do they have that capability to look at this broader perspective or not?
And building on that, I often will view it in terms of two variables. And you get these two variables right, then you can have a high success in the change, whatever you need to then improve upon, accuracy, etc. These variables, one is the technical solution itself. The other is the buy-in, the energy, the commitment. And I find I spend more, kind of my default is to look at the buy-in and the energy and the enthusiasm around it, because I will assume at first, technically, we're going to get there. We're going to get something good. Now, if after time the competence is not there and it's a surprise and we don't have, that's a different conversation. We got to figure out and kind of ratchet things up. But I find where I focus, and often where we then focus with leaders as they're solving problems within organizations, it's around the buy-in. Are you attentive to where people's energy and passions are? Are you attentive where the organization has been and where it's trying to go to? Are you attentive where the team dynamics are trying to? How can you ride that wave to the point that you can then adapt and adjust? Because I would much rather have buy-in and passion and energy around a solution that's not perfect than to have a perfect solution and people are just not into it. And whether that's at the individual level or team or organization. So that's where often I go as a default. What do they care about? What pressures do they have? What is their stress? Let's figure out the buy-in element first.
And that's, I think a team that has alignment to each other, has buy-in, has that energy, right? They can accomplish an awful lot. And the world is absent many perfect solutions anyway. So if it's unachievable, let's just go for pretty darn good, but actually achieved. Let me ask a twist on this question, because it's kind of a unique circumstance here. You have, two leaders of a business whose name is on the door, right? So there's, it's got to wake up feeling accountable for the product you're delivering. So are you, in terms of the role of you as leaders in, when do we take a step back? When do we coach? When do we engage? When do we own the solution? Are you always on the same page? Are you naturally on the same page? Or do you talk about it a lot? Hey, how involved do we want to be? Or do you sort of separate roles enough inside the business that you can make those decisions independent of each other?
You want to answer that first, Daniel?
Sure. And so, okay, I'll just say, so Peter is my brother. And it's been one of the coolest things to also have him as my business partner and to see how good he is at what he does. Again, the competence is there. If it wasn't, we would be having a very different conversation. So competence is there. Then we divide out the roles and we talk so much, whether it's formally, informally, through Slack, texting, and that is something that has been so incredibly valuable. And the more we're able to talk, the more we update, the more we share, the better things are naturally. So that ability to continually talk. And we also know both of us work our heads off and care passionately about the business and the people. We both are not going to make decisions to put us at risk. And so there is a large amount of leeway that we give each other to say, oh yeah, go for it, or give me a heads up. That has been a very nice thing to have, because I trust Peter completely, especially because we'll keep talking and talking and talking through things.
And I feel the same way. I mean, there's this tremendous trust, and it's an honor. It's a blessing. It's wonderful to be able to have a brother and a business partner and a friend that, all gets rolled into one. And we've learned each other's strengths as well, and how to leverage those, and the backgrounds that we bring. So there's a tremendous amount of respect. So no, we don't have to talk about every single decision, because we trust the intentions and where we are. We also know where those thresholds are, where it's, yeah, here's something we should look at together, because this is now butting up against a priority that we may have already established. So let's consider, is this a pivot that we're going to make as we're talking about this, or not? So there is tremendous trust, but a lot of communication, a lot of talking through, and being able to be very frank and candid. And we don't always agree on everything.
Mm-hmm.
You can pull out disc profiles, and Daniel's disc profile and my disc profile are different, as we look at task versus people focused, and pace of change, fast versus slow. And so we complement each other, I think, in many ways.
Yeah, I like that. And it does remind me a lot of the time when, Andy Carlino and I were running the company, and we weren't brothers, but I felt like his brother by the time we were done. And we talked a lot. It was a different time, but we talk in high volumes because we teach classes together. So we'd be sitting there, we kind of shared an office and just huddled over a conference table and just would be around each other. And then we wouldn't see each other for 6 weeks. So we made a lot of independent decisions, but we also got a high volume, even if not a high frequency, but a high volume of communication. And when we disagreed, we'd battle it out, and sometimes even angrily, but then always we trusted each other's intent, so we always got back to a really good place. So glad to hear there's even when it's, I'll say, more complicated, the same ingredients are key to success. So we're really out of time, but I want to appreciate both of you coming on and sharing your own perspectives. Right? I know it's kind of often hard. You're so worried about how other people lead on the client side. It sometimes it's hard to pay attention to how you do it inside your own firm. So I appreciate you sharing some of your own thoughts.
Absolutely, Jamie. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Yeah, much appreciated. It's always fun to talk about these things, and you learn as you do a little bit of this introspection for ourselves. So thanks for that opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Are you a leader looking to level up your skills? Discover the JFlinch Learning Lab, your gateway to insightful video courses on culture change, management systems, problem solving, and much more. Immerse yourself into content created by me and transform your leadership approach. Ready to grow? Visit jflinch.com/learning lab and use code podcast for an exclusive 30% discount. Invest in your leadership journey today.